some patience here. Mike, I can tell you though that it wasn't as long as the weekend's. It wasn't as long as the weekend's halftime show. How are you?
I'm doing awesome, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing well, and let's start there. What did you think about? I love how my dad messaged me and he goes, "Who's the halftime show?" And I got that from other people. Is like, what's the weekend? Some people, you thought it was a band. So, what did you think about the halftime show?
I didn't really. I was hosting my own party like I normally do, and I was, visiting with guests. I was getting food. I was doing, if the game wasn't on, I didn't pay attention. I mean, I really didn't. There were a couple people at the party that were, glued to the halftime and commercials and stuff. That just wasn't me. It was background noise to me. It didn't affect me one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, and I was talking about this with Tammy Reese here on Wake Up Call this week, and her and I were discussing the shows that used to be, and yeah, Jermaine said y'all don't know who The Weeknd. I know who The Weeknd is, sir, but yeah, some people didn't know. My dad was like, who is this guy? But I will tell you that when I was speaking with Tammy about this, we were talking about Super Bowl show, the halftime show that we've seen in the big game before. We've seen Aerosmith, we have seen, Prince, we've seen Michael Jackson. Like, I just don't think it's, more often than not, I just don't, I'm not driven to watch it. I will tell you, last year with Shakira and Jennifer Lopez, like, listen, these women are 50 and 52 or something like that. They are incredible. They're timeless. Their dancing is impeccable. Shakira's insane. And and J-Lo is too, but I thought Shakira was the better of the two dancers. I know that caused some controversy with some people, but last year's show was really good and I respect them, but I don't know, like, I just wasn't moved to watch this year's halftime show.
Well, I turned around at one point and it was like 100 dudes running around with jock straps on their faces, and I was trying to figure out what was going on. And then I got focused back on my guests and, talking and stuff like that. There was a bunch of show business type people trying to outdo each other, and, to me, it's all, you want to know what's real? What's real is, Dan, you can go outside your window right now. You can open up your door and it's 20 degrees outside. Yeah. It's 72 here. That's reality. That's what real is to me. Running around with a mask on your face and, it is what it is. If that's you, that's great. God bless you. But that's not me. I was interested in the game. Years ago, I was interested in the commercials, but with a lot of the big names pulling out of the commercials and donating their funds, which they should have, to COVID efforts and so forth, because the last thing you want to do is be on a lockdown in some part of the country, suffering through this whole COVID thing, and then seeing somebody that spent $10 million on a 30-second commercial. And you're like, wow, I could use some of that. So, it's a better look for some of those companies, I thought, that, chose to do that. But, I thought the game was great, but, sorry to be such a milquetoast or Debbie Downer here, but, it wasn't me. I'm not the halftime guy.
Yeah, and I did. I mean, I don't know. I thought the past was a heck of a lot better. I like Jermaine's message that he sent in here. He said, that really tells me my generation needs to do better music-wise. Now, I think there's some really good stuff out there, but I don't know. They're like, some of the music is just, it doesn't move me like it used to, and R&B's not like it used to be, and we talked to Tammy about that. So, I mean, it's just not the same, the Miley Cyrus stuff and all that. I mean, when did you stop kind of paying attention to that, I guess?
Peripherally, I still pay attention. I mean, I can talk to 2 minutes with anybody about anything, and halftime's one of them. It just, I don't know. I think when I started really focusing on fantasy football more, I was more concerned with just, player development, how they're going to do, what's this going to do for their career. I was focused on the game. Politely, I might watch a halftime thing. I think the last one that I think the one that jumped the shark was the Janet Jackson wardrobe malfunction thing. I was like, yeah, right, okay.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. It's just not. It is what it is, you know. And they're going to make a big production out of it, and you know, it's a big deal for people to play. And you know, nowadays, a lot of people don't know this, but the NFL sells that spot. They see you pay the NFL to perform at halftime. You don't get paid. And then a sponsor like Pepsi steps in and says, hey, we're going to pay that, and we're going to pay the performer because we want all the exposure at the Pepsi halftime show.
Yeah.
So I get all of that, you know, and that's fine. You know, that's what's working, and that's what they do. But that's just not for me. I'm focused on the game. So I enjoy the game. I enjoy the fact that there is a halftime because it lets me load up on more lasagna or something like that. You know, it's a big party. So, you know, I enjoy it. It gives us a little bit of a break from the game and chance to catch up. And that's really what it's about to me, you know, connecting, you know, watching the Super Bowl with my father, you know, things of that nature, getting together with people and watching, you know, the game that I love and, you know, the thing I do, you know, why not, you know, celebrate that? So to me, it's a time for celebration, and it's all background noise outside the game.
Speaking here with Mike Sofka inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Open for indoor dining and is feeling more and more like normal as they are relaxing in New York State the stringent things that we've had for the past year. I went into the Wildcat yesterday, and it genuinely felt like just a normal day at the Wildcat, which I commend the community for supporting local, and I commend the Wildcat for doing everything they've done to stay afloat and to be here. And, you know, I mean, obviously without the community, it's not possible. So thank you to everybody that's done that. They're available for indoor dining and obviously have their bar, plenty of televisions, a massive screen, the speaker system. They're going to try to bring in live music here, which I'm very excited about. And we'll be back there with West Genesee football next week. So very excited for the opportunity to be on stage with them on Thursday, February 18th at 7 p.m. So you can go to the Wildcat at 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus in the Home Depot Plaza. And you can also get curbside pickup, takeout, and delivery by calling 315-487-2222. Mike and I here talking about the big game. Mike, for you, when you look at this matchup and this game, nobody thought, most people didn't, I can't say nobody, there could be somebody in some nook or cranny somewhere, but almost no one thought that we would live in a world where the Kansas City Chiefs couldn't do anything but score 3 field goals, where Pat Mahomes couldn't get in the end zone, and where Tampa Bay was away with this thing at halftime 21-6. What were your overall thoughts about the game and the matchup and what happened as compared to what many of us thought would happen?
Well, I don't know if you can remember way back to a week ago, I said on this very show that the Bucs were going to win the game, and they were going to win the game with defensive pressure on the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, I felt sorry for Pat Mahomes. You know, he felt pressure on 52% of his dropbacks. 29 of them he was hurried. So that was the NFL record right there. You can't go in with backup tackles, and we talked about this last week. You can't go without Eric Fisher, your left tackle, and Mitchell Schwartz, your right tackle, and think you're going to be able to defend Ndamukong Suh, Vita Vea, William Goldson, Jason Pierre-Paul, and those guys, when they're not sacking or pressuring a quarterback, they're opening up the tackling lanes for the linebackers, a Devin White, a Levante David, a Shaquille Barrett. It was a well-rounded effort. So when you put pressure on a quarterback, especially up the middle, which is the same book to beat Brady, is pressure up the middle, because the quarterbacks that have pocket presence get nervous when they can't step up into the pocket. Then they have to make a choice, right or left, or pick a lane. And a lot of times they can't see it, but a tackle or somebody can see them and reaches out and grabs a hold of them or strips the ball. So Pat Mahomes was able to do some things. You know, he was able to run with the ball to try to escape. You know, but it gets to the point where you can't have Pat Mahomes, you know, with 5 carries for 33 yards. Meanwhile, Clyde Edwards-Helaire only has 9 carries. Mind you, he was effective, 7.1 yards a carry. But the bottom line is still the same. The best team that day, Super Bowl Sunday, was in fact the Bucs. They did it with pressure, and they did it with protecting their quarterback. You know, Tom Brady wasn't hurried like that. He didn't throw any interceptions. Patrick Mahomes threw 2. Now, mind you, you know, there was a deflection involved in one of them, but it just takes you back to old school football. Tampa played a 2-deep shell. They were able to pressure the quarterback. They weren't going to let Tyreek Hill get behind them. They weren't going to let Travis Kelce get behind them. They kept everything up front. And again, that pressure with those, I hate to call them second-rate, they're NFL tackles, but when you have your starting tackles are both out for a game of this magnitude, on the biggest stage, on the biggest party the NFL has all year, you're going to lose to a front like Tampa Bay's every time, and that's what happened.
Yeah, you know, and that's the thing. You know, having injuries to your offensive line, listen, they build in the trenches, and this is something that George O'Leary said to me. I've said it many times on the show. George O'Leary, longtime UCF coach, used to be a coach here at Syracuse, and he made mention of the fact of if you do not build in the trenches, you will not win a championship. He said everything is built from the inside out. And I mean, that's how life is. That's what Shamarko and I were talking about. You build from the inside of you out, not the outside in. And the offensive and the defensive line inside out. He said if you don't build in the trenches, you don't get the right guys in the trenches, then you shouldn't be coaching football. It's not going to happen. You're not going to win. You're not going to be successful. He said that clearly. You know, that's what George O'Leary said to me. He said, you build from the inside out. If you don't know that, then you don't know football and you shouldn't be coaching. So, you know, Tampa had a strong defensive front. And on the other side of it, we didn't see the strong offensive line of Kansas City. And that struggle with Kansas City left Pat Mahomes running. You know, I mean, you would think about how many times Pat Mahomes has been able to come back in a game, down by 21 or whatever it may be, and he's found a way to come back. But, Mike, the reality of it all is it didn't happen in this game because he would hike the ball, and within a couple seconds, he's running for his life. He's trying to find somebody. He's trying to get it done. There's times where I thought, okay, he's got to get the ball out. Can't be holding on to it, you know, right now when they were blocking for him. But the reality of it all is he was left running for his life, which makes things very, very hard to do. And some of the passes that he made, I don't know how he made them. I don't know how he got the ball off. Pat Mahomes is a treasure. So let's speak about that, how Pat Mahomes was struggling to find a way to come back because he was running for his life the majority of the game, especially toward the end, because it only got worse. So speak on that, and then secondly, speak on the fact about how he somehow, some way, even though it was in a bad position, found a way to get that ball out 99% of the time in plays that I don't even know how he, as a human being, could get the ball out of his hand.
Well, it did look amazing at times, but he was just coming up short, just not able to connect. And that's what happens when you have that coverage over the top. Tyreek Hill can't get past you if he's in front of you. If he's even, he's leaving. If he's behind you, forget it. You're not catching him. So when you got guys like a Tyreek Hill and a Travis Kelce, who still had 10 catches for like over 100 yards, I think 133 yards, you know, that's what you can do. You have the coverage ability in the back end, but more importantly, again, you have that pressure. And I don't care who you are as a quarterback, if you're getting pressure, it's going to affect you. Even the best of the best, even Tom Brady, it affects him. But that was the difference in the game. The Chiefs weren't able to pressure Tom Brady and to throw in 2 or 3 interceptions. Tom Brady was able to go 21 of 29 for 200 yards. Tom Brady had 3 touchdowns. 2 of them to his old buddy Gronk. Leonard Fournette ran 16 times, 89 yards, but then he also caught 4 passes for 46 yards. So you had this nice combination of them trying to keep Patrick Mahomes off the field. They did edge out, the Bucs did edge out the Chiefs in time of possession. And every time that the Chiefs had the ball, they were kicking a field goal. They weren't running a touchdown. They weren't passing for a touchdown. Meanwhile, just about every time until the very end of the game that Tampa had the ball and they scored, it was a touchdown. And you're not going to win many games like that. This was the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career, even going back to high school, that his team did not score a touchdown. This was just living in Florida, I'm used to when hurricanes start to develop in the Caribbean or what have you, and they start tracking these hurricanes, and they show you the different tracks, and Florida's always in play because of the warm Gulf waters. Well, you're looking at that, and you're like, okay, well, this happens, and that happens, and this happens. That storm's coming here. I better make sure me and my family are ready for this storm, because we might need to hunker down, like they like to say on the Weather Channel. Well, it's the same thing here. The perfect storm happened. Tampa has those excellent players that people would kill to have any one of these guys. Yet Tampa has a Mike Evans, a Chris Godwin, and Antonio Brown, and a Gronkowski, and a Ronald Jones, and a Leonard Fournette. So, you look at the team. You look at the speed on defense. Devin White and Levante David, probably two of the fastest linebackers in the league. Shaquille Barrett, his ability to get to the quarterback, disrupt things. We're not even accounting, and we're not even talking about the plays that they impacted where it doesn't show up on the stat sheet, the interior line, the pass rush on the outside of the Buccaneers. So this was just the perfect storm. The perfect things blended and happened. And it's a great win. It's a great win for Tom Brady. It's a great win at home for the first time, a hometown team with the Super Bowl win. Even in this COVID era and restricted era, you could still appreciate what was going on the field in Tampa.
Yeah, it was nuts. And when you look back on what this postseason was for Tampa, speaking here with my guy Mike Sofka of Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com and our joint venture of Winning Fantasy Football, the group you could join on Facebook by literally just typing into your Facebook search bar Winning Fantasy Football and click join. We're here with you inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Mike, when we look at what Tampa did to get here, they almost lost to Washington on the road. Then they beat the Saints on the road. Then they almost lost to the Packers on the road. And then they got to play a home championship game. Think about this. Tampa was a 5 seed. So Tampa was on the road the entire time. And they were supposed to be on the road for the big game. But they're the first team to ever host a game. First team to ever host the NFL championship game. First team ever in the history to host an NFL championship game in their home stadium. Think about how crazy this is in history when people look back on this. They played on the road, and then they make it to the championship, and that's the game they play at home. Nobody's ever done it in the history of the NFL ever in 55 championship games. Never happened until this one. So 54 never happened. The 55th, it happens, and they're the underdog in the game. And here's the other part of it. They won their games by scoring 31, 30, 31, and 31. Those of you playing the home game know that months of the year have what in it? 30 to 31 days. And who is a team that's, and wherever Tom Brady goes, who's the team that you always have to be concerned for every single month? Tom Brady. So it makes perfect sense to me that they win with a 31 score or a 30 score, because that's a sign of a month, and Brady is the guy who every single month is a terror. This team at one point lost multiple games. This team at one point lost 3 of 4. Lost to the Saints twice before they beat them in the playoffs. Lost to the Saints 38-3 the second time around. And that was a game when they were home in Tampa, where they played the NFL championship. They lost to the Rams at home. They lost to the Chiefs at home. They lost 3 of 4 games at home. So to see them go through something like that and then come home to play a championship game and win it and be the first team to do it, like, this story is incredible. It is incredible to see that they won their last 4 after losing 3 of 4, and those 3 of 4 all being at home, and those being against teams that they saw again in the Chiefs and the Saints, and then having to play the Chiefs at home again after losing to them and finding a way to beat them and not even allowing them anywhere near the 24 points they scored. Mike, there's so many storylines in what I just said. It's incredible.
Yeah, well, Tampa proved that they can assemble a team. But it's like you said, you can't underestimate the impact of Tom Brady. We talked about it last week where Steph Curry, one of the prominent three-point shooters in the league, only completes 43%. I say only 43% of his three-point attempts. That's great for an NBA player. The batting champion in Major League Baseball each year usually, goes somewhere around the 300, the high 300. That's 30% of your time. Well, a lot of people don't know Tom Brady, 21 seasons in, made 10 Super Bowls. That's 47% of the time. Translation, Tom Brady has a better chance of winning the Super Bowl than anybody does of winning the batting championship or hitting the most three-pointers in the NBA. Tom Brady has now won 7 of those 10 Super Bowls. That's more than any other team in NFL history. It took me a few years to get to it, but a few years ago I conceded that Tom Brady is the GOAT.
Yeah.
Tom Brady put what this team needed on top. He didn't make the most money. He's not making the most money, but he knows that allowed them to go get other players, that allowed them to pick and choose. When Leonard Fournette was dismissed by the Jags, that was an automatic. LaShawn McCoy was magnetically attracted to playing in Florida in the sunshine, although we hadn't seen much of him this year. Rob Gronkowski said it before in New England that the only quarterback he's playing for is Tom Brady. Tom Brady shows up in Tampa, boom, here's Gronk. Gronk loves the lifestyle. Gronk's that Florida party guy. Gronk's that bad neighbor you have when you're in Florida that's having parties all night long and stuff. But, hey, he's a great football player. Look what he did. He got open twice in the end zone or near the end zone and scored 2 touchdowns. Mike Evans, I know, was limited. Chris Godwin. All this team did was put up a team effort, and that team was led by Tom Brady. Hey, I got news for you. If I'm a player, if I'm on defense or if I'm on offense, I am never worried when I have Tom Brady on my team. I've seen the history. I know what this guy can do, and he's going to do it again. And this time he did just enough. He didn't have to throw for 400 yards. He's not that guy anymore anyway. But what he did was he managed that offense. They ran the ball well, and then they ran these tight end screens to a Cameron Brate, who set up plays to a Rob Gronkowski in the end zone. So it was a total team effort. You could see the nastiness in the offensive line led by Ryan Jensen. That guy is ready to scrap anybody, anytime on the field. He almost got carried away at one point, and so did Tom Brady. Tom Brady getting up in the Chiefs defenders' faces. Who was that? Was it Tyrone Matthew, the Honey Badger? And we're jawing back and forth. Tom is actually chasing him down on the field at one point to say something to him. So it was a hard fought game. There was some tussles on the field. Heck, there was even a streaker on the field. Of course, they try not to show those things on TV. So this game had everything but the cannons firing off when the Bucs scored. That was one thing that the NFL said they would not do. I know I questioned that last week, but the cannons were only fired off pre-game, post-game. However, there was local reports of some parade enthusiasts who do things such as, down here they have the Gasparilla Parade. Yeah. Gasparilla is the story, the myth, the tale, what have you, of Jose Gaspar pirating and pirate adventures in the Tampa Bay area. That's where they docked and all this. True or not, I don't know. But they have a parade each year, so they have these giant boats, parade worthy, with these cannons on them. So there was rumor that they were lobbied or parked outside the stadium, and they were watching the game, and every time the Bucs scored, they were firing off the cannons outside the stadium. Now, I don't have any confirmation on that, but that's what I heard. So when I say this game had everything, this game had everything.
Yeah, and there was so much to be said about the other pieces that happened that fell into place for three, not one, not two, but three former Jacksonville Jaguars. We'll talk about all of that and more right after this fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets life. We're inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, here with Mike Sofka. Make sure in the meantime that you find us on Facebook, Winning Fantasy Football, and join the group that is Winning Fantasy Football, and go to HallOfFameFantasyFootball.com as well as WakeUpCallDT.com and bookmark them while you listen to this.
Avicoli's Restaurant, located right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road, is proud to be your local neighbor, growing with you for over 20 years. We're open 7 days a week for lunch, dinner, and drinks. For takeout, delivery, or catering, call us at 315-622-5100. When you order online and use our promo code AVS10, you will save 10% on your online purchase at myavocolis.com. And make sure to join us monthly for our live on-site broadcasts centered around Liverpool athletics. Avicoli's, your local, trusted neighbor right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road.
Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9Campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9Campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
Trapper's Pizza Pub, located on 5950 Butternut Drive in East Syracuse. Right off of Bridge Street is your local community supporter right around the corner. Join us on site at Trapper's Pizza Pub for our live monthly broadcast supporting Central New York student athletes and their sports programs. Call 315-438-4444 for more information. And find us on Facebook and Instagram at Trapper's Pizza Pub. Trapper's Pizza Pub, your local community supporter right around the corner.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on WakeUpCallDT.com, your one-stop sports shop. MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT, the two places where you're listening, as well as watching and listening on Facebook Live, on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT, and on YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT. We're inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, and Mike and I are here with you every Wednesday speaking about fantasy football and so much more inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, not one of or not a, but the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York, open for indoor dining, and of course you could go for curbside pickup, takeout, and delivery by calling 315-487-2222. That's 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat. Mike, speaking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, Leonard Fournette, Jadon Mickens, and Blaine Gabbert all had an opportunity to be a part of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and now they are now NFL championship winners. They will get rings. They went from a team that couldn't figure things out to a team that just took down a team that many thought, including myself and you at the beginning of the season, couldn't be taken down by anybody, which is the Kansas City Chiefs. Tampa winning the game 31-9, handed a ring to Blaine Gabbert former quarterback and high draft pick of the Jaguars. Leonard Fournette, former top 4, number 4 draft pick overall that left this season from Jacksonville to Tampa. And Jadon Mickens, a guy who slept in his car when he was on the practice squad because he didn't know what was going to happen, didn't want to get an apartment, didn't know if he would be there, slept in his car when he was on the Jaguars practice squad, and now he is a champion of the NFL. Leonard Fournette played, obviously ran the ball, and was the second leading receiver on the team. He finished the game with over 120 yards from scrimmage and a rushing touchdown, 5.6 yards a carry. Jadon Mickens was the kick returner and had three returns for 75 yards, averaging 25 yards on his kick returns. And Blaine Gabbert obviously did not play because he was behind Tom Brady. So 2 out of the 3 of them played, but all 3 of them will receive rings. Thoughts on Gabbert, Fournette, and Mickens all going from the Jaguars and now being NFL champions?
Well, I think it's a 180-degree turn for Leonard Fournette, who just a couple years ago we were talking about in disgust as he was cutting it up on the sideline with T.J. Yeldon, running after fans in the stands on opposing teams, and just the whole thing not a good look. And you question the maturity issues, and then the ability for him to connect with Tom in Tampa, come on aboard was something else. So I didn't see or hear much of the same chatter and clatter we heard when he was with the Jaguars. And, and a Blaine Gabbert, good for him. He's stuck around, and, he put himself in a position that, he knew he wasn't one of the starters in the NFL. He's not one of the top 32, but he's still somewhat serviceable should something happen. And, lucky for the Bucs, nothing did happen, and Tom was able to keep the ship upright. And then take a look at Jadon Mickens. Anytime you can get 25 yards on a kick return and you average that on your 3 kick returns for 75 yards, you're doing your job. It took everybody on the team doing their job. And where have we heard that saying before? Do your job. Oh, that was in New England with Tom Brady. You got guys like, Sean Murphy Bunting, commenting on how he's amazed by Tom Brady, a guy at his age working harder than anybody else, people half his age on the team. So, Tom Brady led by example. So you can't underestimate Tom Brady's contribution. Again, Tom Brady knows the score. Like a Michael Jordan. He comes in, he knows he doesn't have to make all the money on the field. He's going to make it up in endorsements. He's going to make it on the back end. He's got so many different avenues that are generating income, including his supermodel wife, who may make more money than he does. So he has not got a worry in the world but to play football, put together a winning team, take that winning attitude, and carry them. There were times, like you and I said, things didn't look too bright. They were on a losing skid. But you can't underestimate what happened and the impact that the COVID crisis had on everyone in the NFL. When you compound that with a new quarterback, a new system, new pieces to the puzzle. A lot of the passing game nowadays in the NFL is timing and familiarity with your guys that you're connecting with. Tom's got to know that you know where you're supposed to be and you're going to be there, and then Tom delivers the ball to where you're supposed to be. So again, if everybody does their job, things are going to happen in a positive way. And you saw after that Week 12 loss to Kansas City, well, Tom got them in gear, and they were the hottest team down the stretch outside the Baltimore Ravens, and they stayed hot at the right time. So, again, hats off to a Tom Brady, and you can't underestimate what he has brought to this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team.
No, and to go back to that number 31 where they scored 31 points 3 times en route to an NFL championship, their second in history for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Here's something interesting. It's kind of an ode to the fact, and a full 180, that of the 45 seasons that Tampa has been an NFL franchise, they had 31 losing seasons. 31 losing seasons and 14 winning seasons in total of their 45 seasons, and they score 31 points 3 times, including in the NFL championship game. They score 31, and then we look back at the fact that they have 31 losing seasons. So kind of an interesting way how that all came together, Mike, to have that score and then look at the fact that 31 of 45 times the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been on the wrong side of the win-loss column in their history in the NFL.
Yeah, well, I grew up just outside of Tampa, halfway between Tampa and Orlando, and Tampa was the team you rooted for if you were, in Florida, in this area. There were a lot of strongholds, from Miami being the only game in town, and then when Jacksonville got their team, things kind of split, and I was kind of on that line between Tampa and Jacksonville in the market and in the coverage, and that was about the time I started really dedicating things to fantasy football-wise, but I still kept up. I'll root for a Florida team. I'll root for a Miami, a Jacksonville, a Tampa. That's what you're supposed to do when you live in that state. You pull for the home team. They may not be your team, but that's okay. So, there's no bandwagon jumping here by any means, but at the same time, I got to respect what this team has been able to accomplish, and getting hot at the right time is everything. And it's funny, you keep coming up with these numbers and the 30 and the 31. It just goes to show you that when it comes down to it, it's all math. And that's one of the principles I always follow in fantasy football, and that's what's helped me, and that's what I use to help others, is the math of the game. People think the math only applies to Major League Baseball because that's a statistic crazy thing, or basketball because that's almost statistic crazy as well. Well, we don't have time or the energy to look outside the top 10 or so at each position. Well, that's where the difference is in fantasy football. It's a team sport. You got to be steady Eddie and on top of your game from the top of your roster to the bottom. And if you look, the fantasy kind of mimics the reality of what the Bucs were able to do. They put together the right group of guys from top to bottom, the unbeatable guys, and it just took a little while to get
here
going.
On mixlr.com/WakeUpCall and on Wake Up Call.
But with a guy like Tom Brady at the helm, he's going to prove that math right every single time. Big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games, and that's what we saw with Tom Brady.
Yeah, he got after it, and that's the thing. I mean, and you got to look at the fact that, Tampa as a team did not turn the ball over once in the game. And what did I say about Kansas City, right? You got to get Tampa, you got to get some mistakes to happen. And actually, I said it about Buffalo beforehand. I was like, you got to take some possessions away from Kansas City. Well, Kansas City did lose a possession. They fumbled the ball. Pat Mahomes fumbled it, but he kept it. But he did throw 2 interceptions in the game. Brady did not throw a single interception, and even though he fumbled, he did not lose it. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers had 0 turnovers in the game, Mike. We talk about it in basketball. We talk about it in football in general over and over and over again. When you don't turn the ball over, you give yourself a real good chance of winning a game. 0 turnovers in the nation's biggest stage of the NFL. That says something.
Yeah, you're not going to win very many games by giving the opponent the opportunity to score when you have the ball. That's not the way you win. That's why Jameis Winston is no longer here. And talk about numbers, 30-31. Last year, Jameis Winston, 31 touchdowns. Is it 30 or 31? I think it was 31 touchdowns, 31 interceptions. That's not going to win very many games. That's not going to carry your team when they need to be carried. Now, Tom Brady, like I said, didn't have to do it all. He only had 200 yards. He had 3 touchdowns, 2 of them to his old good friend Gronk. You got to understand that Tom Brady knew what was in front of him. He knew how to get to where they wanted to be. He knew how to take the team to the promised land, and that's what he was able to deliver on. Tom Brady's a guy who's a smart guy. He's not afraid to take a back seat. He's not afraid to let the speedsters do their thing when he gets the ball into their hands. So again, playing like the Trent Dilfer type role. Don't screw this up type role. Complete 21 of your 29 passes. Have a 125.8 QB rating. Meanwhile, the pressure your defense is supplying for you has put a QB rating of 52.3 on Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes completed about half of his passes, going 26 for 49. He was under pressure all day. So, you look at those numbers like we were talking about, it's all math. It all comes down to math. One way or another, it's all math.
Yeah, we look at the facts that Jameis Winston in this season, last season when he was with Tampa, 2019-2020, had 33 touchdowns to 30 interceptions. And so you see that, and I mean, obviously he was giving it up as much as he was making it happen, and that's why they needed to make a change. Mike and I will have one final shift here into the fast break, and then we'll be back here to speak with you on how somehow, some way, you knew it was going to happen. Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski figured out a way to make history over and over and over again in this year's championship game. We'll talk about it right after this.
Cafe Cabal Mobile Cafe brings the cafe experience to you. We'll roll out to your neighborhood or office, ready to serve our locally crafted espresso bar to our loyal patrons. Inquire at cafecabal.com. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, located on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, is home to over 40 flavors with more than 200 flavors in their total wheelhouse. Sky's the limit for this sweet and savory Central New York company. Keep it local at your parties, fundraisers, wedding showers, baby showers, and more by calling 315-450-MA-PA. That's 315-450-6272 for popcorn bars with custom flavors and colors at your upcoming event. Make sure to visit them on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. And for more information, go to maandpassnacks.com. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you? The Millhouse Market, located on 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York, is absolutely positively worth the drive every time. Make sure you make your way to the Millhouse Market, but first go to the Apple app or Google Play Store and download their app. It is extremely user-friendly, and there you will find their homemade breads, desserts, quinoa bowls, rice bowls, salads, brick oven pizzas, and sandwiches named after the families that helped to settle today's Pulaski. They're ingrained in our community and ingrained in our taste buds, and once you try their flavors and their combinations, you'll want to go back for more, and I will definitely challenge you to find a favorite, because when you think you have one, another one creeps in, and then all of a sudden you got 13 favorites and you're trying to put them in order, and a 14th one joins the fray. The Millhouse Market does things differently in the best of ways, and that's what makes them worth the drive absolutely every time. Open Tuesday through Sunday for their drive-up pickup window. You don't even have to leave their car, and you have contactless pay on the app, so drive your car right up, grab, and go. Their general store is open throughout the week with local products from local companies, and of course their bistro restaurant is open on the weekends inside. So many different ways to enjoy a local place, and supporting local is extremely important to us here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and that's why we suggest that you head out to the Millhouse Market. Worth the drive every time on 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York. With that being stated, Mr. Sofka is here with me for one final piece. That is the history that was made with Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski. We knew coming into it that they had to have 2 touchdowns in the championship game in order to pass Joe Montana and Jerry Rice, and leave it up to Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski. And Rob, who's been relatively quiet this season as a Tampa Bay Buck, he leads the team with 6 catches, 7 targets, both led the team with that. Most targets, most catches in the championship. 67 yards were the most, and the 2 touchdowns were the most. He got the 2 that he needed to make it happen. So let's discuss what it means. Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski in Super Bowl 55 were able to do something incredible, and in this postseason in general. Tom Brady's touchdown to Rob Gronkowski in the first quarter tied him with Joe Montana and Jerry Rice, where they had, the touchdown in the first quarter passed the so it was the 13th postseason touchdown shared by Rob Gronkowski and Tom Brady, which went by Joe Montana and Jerry Rice's mark of 12. So in the first quarter, so they only needed one. So in the first quarter, I thought they needed two. Tom Brady passed with Rob Gronkowski, the tandem passed Joe Montana and Jerry Rice, who had 12 postseason touchdowns together all time. The 13 between Brady and Gronk passed it. And then it happened again. And it was the 5th career Super Bowl touchdown, which also went by Montana and Rice, who had 4 touchdowns in the nation's championship game. So looking at that is absolutely, positively incredible. We also look at the fact that Gronkowski joined Jerry Rice as the only players in NFL history to have 2 or more touchdown receptions in more than one NFL championship game. So, once again, Rob Gronkowski, Tom Brady have more touchdowns together as a tandem than anybody in the history of the NFL, including Joe Montana and Jerry Rice. They have more NFL championship touchdowns than anybody in history as a tandem, including Joe Montana and Jerry Rice. And Rob Gronkowski and Jerry Rice are the only players in NFL history to have multiple touchdown grabs in multiple NFL championship games. Thoughts, Mr. Sofka?
Yeah, well, it's like you had, asked me last week to pick a winner of this game, and, I qualified that with one of the reasons I was taking the Bucs outside of the defensive pressure that they're going to put on, Pat Mahomes. I said if I had to pick one quarterback to win one game, it would be Tom Brady. Now, a lot of Gen Xers or millennials, I hate to classify or group people, but, they would take, the opposite. They would take Pat Mahomes. That's what they're familiar with. And with good right, Pat Mahomes would be the 1A to my Tom Brady being the 1. So you just take a look at that. I'm comfortable with Tom Brady because of where he's been, what he does, where he's about, and so forth. Who do you think Tom Brady is extremely comfortable with? Well, that's Gronk. They have history together. They know they can do that thing where they just look at each other, and they know the adjustment they're going to make right as soon as the ball is snapped. These guys know where the other one is and what the other one is thinking. That's why Gronk said he's not going to play for any other quarterback. That's why Gronk came out of retirement. That's why Tom Brady was able to lure him to Tampa, because of the sun and fun, because of the ability to put together a dynamic team. Now there's talks of how many more times can they do this. I say it's up to them. It's sort of like we see Kansas City coming down off this pedestal and Tampa getting put up on it right now. Are they going to be able to keep everybody? It looks like they're going to be able to keep most everybody. I wouldn't think that if you were a player on that roster, if you're one of the 52 or 53, you can say, hey, no, I want to stay here. I want to be here. No, I know I can go out and get more money somewhere else. I choose to play with Tom Brady. Why wouldn't you? You could tell your grandkids and your great-grandkids and show them video of you playing with the greatest of all time, winning championships with the greatest players of all time. I would want that legacy. I would want that destiny. So I'm going to be familiar with Gronk. Gronk's going to be familiar with Tom, and everybody else is along for the ride in the party, and they're contributing, and they're doing their part. It wasn't all Gronk, it wasn't all Tom, but they did their part enough and led as leaders do. When we talked last year of Jameis Winston, who we just talked about with the pick sixes and the interceptions to touchdown ratio, you look at that, he was not a leader of men. Tom Brady is a leader of men. Tom, again, I know everybody's like, oh, Mike, you're all over Tom. Deservedly so. It is what it is. I'm telling you that he's the greatest of all time. And you already know that. But I still have to tell you again, because it's unfathomable what this guy's able to do. This guy's doing things that no one else on the planet has ever done in NFL football. He's something else to watch, and I can only hope that we get a few more years.
I held out for a long time calling him the GOAT, greatest of all time. When you go to a 7-9 team that is not relevant in the NFL, that is behind the Saints, behind the Falcons, and at times behind Carolina, and was really the only team in the NFC South that really didn't have a shot based on their record. I mean, they weren't in the conversation. 3 or 4 teams in the conversation, one of them wasn't Tampa. To go there in your first year at 43 years old, play every game, throw for over 4,600 yards, complete almost 66% of your passes. To put all of that together and to have 40 touchdowns to 12 interceptions, to lead the team on the road in 3 games, and then to play what Mike and I consider the best team coming into this season in Kansas City and embarrass them and hold them to field goals, which nobody in their right mind, nobody does. Nobody does. Nobody in their best game does. That, to me, if you want to beat Kansas City, you got to outscore them. They out-defensed them. And what did I tell you going into the game? As much as I picked Kansas City, what did I say? Tampa Bay's defense is better. Tampa Bay's defense is harassing. Tampa Bay's defense gets the edge over Kansas City. They do. Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh, are you kidding me? Golston, Devin White, they by far were better. And so, and I don't think the defense gets enough credit by any stretch of the imagination. Tom Brady's last 2 Super Bowls in New England, defense did a lot of work. This game, defense did a lot of work. I'm not taking anything away from Tom, but I'm trying to give something to the defense. But I spent a long time not calling him the GOAT. And listen, you go to a team that's irrelevant in Tampa, and you're there for 1 season, and you lead them to a championship in 1 season, you get them to believe in 1 season, you turn them around in 1 season, you're the GOAT. You win 6, now you got 7, now you got more than any NFL. You as an individual have more than any NFL team in its history as an organization. Yeah. And you did it without Belichick. And shout out to Bruce Arians and the gang down there. Tampa went from 0 to hero. So he's the GOAT. I rest my case. And I'm allowed to change my opinion over time. Somebody go, oh, Dan, 3 years ago, blah, 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 I got the soundbite. Yeah, that was 3 years ago. I'm admitting that I was wrong, which nobody does in the media. And I'm telling you, he's the GOAT. So that's it. There is no conversation. And anybody that thinks he's not the greatest of all time when it comes to being in the NFL at the quarterback position and winning and getting guys to believe, does he have the best arm? We could talk about arm, talk about Marino and so on and so forth, but Tom Brady all around, statistically, you can't fight the argument. And statistics are facts, and you can't fight facts. I mean, some people try to. That's always fun. But you can't fight facts, and you don't want to have conversations with illogical and irrational people. I thought Tom needed to show me a little bit more, and he more than showed me. So if I was sitting on a board right now, he's the GOAT. I put my gavel down, end of story, let's break for lunch. There's nothing else to be said, Mr. Sofka.
Yeah, there's if I'm on defense, even if I'm not on offense on the Bucks, I know I'm okay. And I'm going to play that much harder to get my, you say, how can they play much harder? When you have a guy that elevates your team, that's easy because they're giving you a boost. I'll give you an example. I'll give you an exercise. If you're listening to this, take one of your hands, either one, left or right, doesn't matter, and reach up in the sky as high as you can. Whether you're sitting, standing, laying down, take that hand and reach up as high as you can. Now put your hand back down. Now, I want you to concentrate real hard, and I want you to elevate and put your arm up higher than you just did. I know I asked you to do it the highest, but I want you to do it even higher now because I believe you can make it even higher. Reach up. Go ahead, reach up. Yes, you see now you're able to reach up higher because you're focused on that. That's what Tom Brady does. Yeah. He makes great ball players better. He makes everybody around him better, whether it's psychological, emotional, physical, whatever you want to say it is. Yeah. He's got that thing who elevates everybody around him. That's what a leader of men does. That's what Tom Brady is.
I want to thank you for that because that was a really good stretch this morning. So I appreciate that. Mike Sofka here of Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com. He's going to be with us for Florida in Focus when Wake Up Call goes on the road to Florida in just a couple weeks. Mike, as always, I appreciate you. I thank you so much. And for the Fantasy Football Power Hour, Shout out to the Wildcat. They are open for indoor dining throughout the week, as well as curbside pickup, takeout, and delivery. 315-487-2222 and 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus. For those of you that are heading over there, thank you to all that you do to the Wildcat and for Mr. Sofka of Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com and our joint venture of Winning Fantasy Football, the group you could join for free here on Facebook. I want to say thank you, my friend, on everything today. A very concise and well put together conversation. Kudos to you for that. And as always, I love every Wednesday when I get to set my dial to the Fantasy Football Power Hour and I get to be here with a friend. I respect you, Mr. Sofka, and I very much look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks.
Well, thank you, Dan. The feeling, of course, is mutual. I appreciate the opportunity. One more tip for fantasy players, because as we talk about each week, fantasy never sleeps. I don't ever stop. Like this fantasy football thing is what I do. You need to watch pro days. There is no combine this year. Pro days are starting up. You're going to see Trevor Lawrence this weekend. Pay attention, folks. And if you can't pay attention, that's okay. Just email me or go to my site, go to the Facebook page, and we'll help you out.
Yeah, Mike and I will be doing our due diligence because we're already getting ready for the 2021 NFL Draft because fantasy football on Wake Up Call never sleeps. So, Mr. Sofka, thank you, and I look forward to talking with you very, very soon. And in the meantime, stay safe and stay blessed.
Sounds good, Dan. Thanks. You as well.
Thank you. That coming from Mike Sofka here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And I want to bid you all adieu today. I appreciate you so very much. And I do want to let you know really quick before we hop out of here that you can find Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, of course, every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT, YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT, as well as on MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT and on the homepage of WakeUpCallDT.com. And you can search for us on our outlets of Stitcher, Spotify, MixLR, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Podbean, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, and of course YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT by searching Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora or simply searching the one word of Wake Up Call DT. So you can find us either way by doing that, and I implore you to do that. Over 1,400 shows available to you, and make sure you go and check the latest at TuneIn, Podbean, Stitcher, MixLR, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And a big shout out to those companies that we're proud to partner with in the community that help to make Wake Up Call so much better and just give us a boost in that special bonus. In Central and Upstate New York, we want to thank Carvel DeWitt, Cafe Kubal, the Wildcat Sports Pub, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Honda City of Liverpool, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Avicoli's, where you can use the promo code AVS10 for 10% off online at myavicoli's.com for every online purchase. Use AVS10. Pizza Man, as well as Canine Campground Dog Boarding, the Millhouse Market, and Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. Use the promo code at maandpaspopcorn.com, and that promo code will get you 20% off if you go to maandpaspopcorn.com. We're rolling ever closer to Valentine's Day, and they have the chocolate covered like candy dipped pretzel sticks. They have those for you. They have their giant popcorn and marshmallow hearts, the heart cakes that have like the chocolate Ghirardelli drizzled on top of it, which is fantastically, oh my, it looks so good. And they're so like huge. They're awesome. So they have all of that, so many great things. They have their Ghirardelli chocolate covered Oreos, and of course they have their colored Valentine's Day kettle corn and so much more, all at Ma and Pa's. Get it and ship it, or get it for yourself. You can go in-store at 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, or you can go online to maandpaspopcorn.com. Even if you're picking it up in-store and you want the 20% off, they'll give that to you. If you order online, you can put in-store pickup or delivery. You can send it anywhere in the 50 United States. Anywhere in America, you can send maandpaspopcorn.com to wish someone a proper happy Valentine's Day. Use the promo code DT20 to get 20% off. So when you do something for somebody else, you also get a little discount yourself. So you send that gift, you get 20% off, and you get to do something nice for somebody. So thank you to Ma and Pa's for giving back to the community, being awesome, and providing us with that promo code DT20. In the meantime, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. We have awesome stuff coming up the last couple days of this week, and stay blessed. Today is all you got, and every single grain of sand matters. God flipped that hourglass when you were born, and it doesn't flip back. So every piece of that sand, every hour, every minute, every second, every month, every day, every week, you cannot afford to use any of it without appreciating it or spending it wisely, because it doesn't come. Think about a bank account where you had a certain amount of money at the beginning of your life, and you can never put money back in, but money can always be deducted. Would you be spending time where you're spending it if time was money and you couldn't get it back? Think about that. And I want to, for those of you, some of you have seen the shirts, but I wanted to shout them out. Canine Camp Dog Daycare. They only have a few of them left. Very limited supply at 228 Old Bridge Street in East Syracuse. This money goes to help, like helping hounds and the CNYSPCA. And it's a dog peeing on COVID-19, and it says, lift your leg on the virus. So it's a little joke, little fun shirt. You can wear it any time. And it supports somebody here in our community. It supports the animals in our community. And, of course, it's a funny shirt to wear to show that we're not going to let a virus or anything else keep us down on the mat. We're always going to bounce back up. God bless. No stress. Do your best. I will talk with you soon. And I hope you have a fantastic day.